Today we are celebrating the first anniversary of Homeland Collection. Welcome! My name is Sanni, better known as Sanni Pauliina in the knitting world, and this is usually the place for Rustic Knits podcast, but today we are diving all into my Homeland collection, which was my thesis collection for my bachelor's degree in design, and yeah, it's the first anniversary of the collection release, and a year ago I didn't have a talking channel like this where I could really dive deep into what I did and why I did it and everything like that. So I thought the first anniversary would be a good time to do a real deep dive into the subject. I'll be going through all 5 designs today, talking about the specifics of each, how they came to be, and I'm also going into the background of this thesis, and I think I'm gonna start with that. So, as I said, I have a bachelor's degree in design, or it's a bachelor's degree of culture and arts, but in the field of design. I'm specialized in fashion and jewelry design. At my time, they went kind of hand in hand in school. They have changed the, is it curriculum? But anyway, the courses that are available, they have changed that since. So now they are even more specific, but at my time it was fashion and jewelry together. I'm kind of far away. I'm trying to again see from my mirror setup. At my time, fashion and jewelry sort of went together, and in school I studied more of jewelry design. The knitting part is all me. At my time we didn't have a specific knitting course at school. They do now, and I'm actually the teacher of it, but yeah, at my time it wasn't available. So the knitting is all me, and I think I should do a little knitting background dive in an episode as well, to tell you how I ended up here. But yeah, that was just my special interest and my special niche in school, is that I could do a lot of knitting stuff. I studied specifically jewelry mostly. That being said, obviously the skills that I learned in school are very, very handy in my work as a knitwear designer right now. And I do plan on expanding my business to have a small little jewelry workshop at some point. But it's not really feasible at the moment yet. But yeah, that being said, while I did study a lot of the jewelry stuff, I did my practical training in jewelry, I decided that including knitting into the thesis is what would forward my career the best, would benefit my career the best. My original plan was to make a thesis with specific themes and then translating those themes into a knitwear design and a jewelry design that would go together. But when the actual time of doing the thesis came nearer, I realized that was quite a lot, and then I couldn't really turn that into something something like concrete and actually available to the wider public, because I didn't have the resources to make or produce enough jewelry to be actually sold. So in larger quantities. So I was pondering about that, and then I was starting to get a little overwhelmed. And then I realized I need to scale back and go back to what feels comfortable and meaningful to me. And I came to Finnish wools. If you haven't been following me for the last year, you may not know at all what Homeland Collection is. And basically, it's 5 knitting patterns designed for the wool of Finnish land races. I'm really passionate about using natural fibers. That's been with me for years. Like, I prefer to use all natural fibers. Obviously, that's not always an option. Like elastane is in a lot of clothes, and sometimes that's synthetic, and some of my outerwear is synthetic. But in my day-to-day clothes, I try to avoid polyester and acrylic and even polyamide in socks nowadays. I tend to try to steer away from. And I've also been really interested in different fibers and trying wools from different breeds of sheep, different animals, different fibers, and I really wanted to do a deep dive into the Finnish land races. I'm from Finland. Some years ago there were news articles made about the fact that a lot of Finnish wool is being burned and discarded as waste. And that really hit me already at the time. I was already like deep into knitting at that point. And that sounded crazy to me, because Finnish wool is such an amazing fiber, but at that time it just wasn't, it didn't make sense for the farmers to try to get the fiber like forward and manufactured, because it cost more to do that than to just shear the sheep and burn it as waste. They weren't benefiting from selling it forward at all. So a lot of Finnish wool was just discarded. And that sounded absolutely crazy to me. And in recent years, a lot of, by recent I mean like last 5 or 6, a lot of newer brands of Finnish wool yarn have come about. And yeah, I felt like that was a subject that I wanted to dive deeper into, learn more about the differences between the sheep races and how they are best used and utilized, and really highlight them in this collection. So that's what I did. There are 3 Finnish land races of sheep. First and most known being Finnsheep, which is Suomen lammas in Finnish. Then there is Kainuu Grey, Kainuun harmas in Finnish, and it's from Kainuu is a region in Finland. And then there is Åland sheep, Ahvenanmaan lammas in Finnish, which Åland again is it's an island. So yeah, those are the 3 sheep breeds that I was going to base this collection on. And out of those, Finnsheep and Kainuu Grey are fairly similar. They they for sure have their differences, but they are both quite soft and nice fibers. I feel like a lot of especially like older Finnish folk have this notion that Finnish wool is really like scratchy and hard, which for sure comes from the clothes that they had, let's say mid 1900s when they were kids. I mean, with the way that the wool was treated back then, I'm sure that the the wool pants were quite itchy. I understand that. But at best, Finnsheep can be as soft and softer than merino. So it is quite a nice and delicate fiber when treated right and when you have the best quality sorted out. Kainuu Grey is usually thought of as a softer version of Finnsheep. It's a bit more slick and it has this nice sheen to it. And the Kainuu Grey sheep are really pretty. And then Homeland sheep differs quite a bit because it's from the like coastal region, and it's smaller, it's way tougher as a sheep. It's a really like small, sort of a goat-like sheep in a way. It's adapted to the kind of rough nature around the area where it lives, and also the wool is a lot tougher and like more adapted to maybe outerwear or things that need a lot of durability. It's the most rare out of the three sheep breeds. All of them, we don't have like very many of any of them, and I know that the sheep industry in Finland is having a bit of a hard time right now, which is really a shame because these sheep breeds are amazing. Also, I'd like to add that while I know the wool industry can have a lot of problems and ethical issues and stuff like that, Finnish wool is sort of a safe bet. In Finland, the sheep they are not necessarily grown for the wool. The wool is a byproduct of having those sheep. It's either meat or sometimes they are used for they are basically used as traditional live lawn mowers, so they are taking care of some nature reserve spaces and stuff like that. So yeah, wool is a byproduct of having those sheep, and because Finland is such a small country and the quantities of animals are fairly small as well, you can be pretty sure that the wool is ethically sourced, and a lot of these yarns, a lot of Finnish yarns are actually traceable to the farm, or in the best case to the animal. And a lot of the smaller yarn producers are actually involved in the wool gathering process and in the shearing and all that stuff. So Finnish wool to me is like a feel-good wool. You can be fairly sure that the animals have not suffered in any way. Some of them are kept as pets and some of them are like brought in for summer to take care of the landscape, like eating grass and doing the natural lawn mowing. They are very well taken care of. So yeah, so that's kind of how I came to the decision on the topic of the thesis. And for school purposes, for the purpose of me graduating, it would have been enough to like design the concept for the collection, make some swatches, try out the materials, and then just like sketch out the collection represented in some digital way. But since I wanted to do this for my own career and for my own expertise, that obviously wasn't enough, and I did actually make all the items, make patterns for them, and they are all available. Now we have got the basics of why I did this and how I decided to do this. And next up is how I actually did it. Early in the process, first I went scouting for the materials, and I wanted specifically like breed specific yarns so that I could really get a feel for the qualities of each breed as they are and not blend it with anything else. That was the first and the most important criteria for this collection. I also early on decided that I wasn't going to do color work for this collection. I do design a lot of colorwork things, so I kind of wanted to branch out, and also I felt like this needed I wanted a more like a traditional rustic feel for the collection, so I fairly quickly I landed on cables and texture as the key elements for the collection. Searching for the yarns was quite it was a surprising undertaking. Like Finnish wool has gotten a lot more commonplace here in Finland anyway. There are a lot of companies and dyers doing it nowadays, but when you add to the mix that you need it to be breed specific, it got a lot more difficult. I had kind of mapped out, I had decided that I was going to do a garment, a shawl, socks, and a hand thing and a head thing. And I had sort of mapped out which breed would be best for which item. But the final decisions came from what was actually available. And I started with the Homeland sheep because it was the most rare and rarely used. And I could find some yarns, but I decided to ask a dyer that I had worked with several times previously, and I knew she was very passionate about Finnish land races as well, and I was sure she would be excited about this thesis and stuff. So Johanna of Jalovilla. I asked her, I knew she had a Homeland sheep base, and it used to be, if I remember correctly, it was a DK weight 100% Homeland wool base, and I thought that would be perfect for some mittens. But I asked her, and she said that she was actually moving away from that base, but she was coming out with a sock yarn in Homeland sheep wool. And I was like, right, well, that's perfect, I want that that in the collection, because Homeland sheep wool is really durable, so I thought it would be best for either socks or mittens. But I hadn't even dreamed of finding a sock yarn in a full Homeland sheep wool. But yeah, she was coming up with that, so I decided Homeland sheep for socks, and from then on it kind of naturally formed into having Finnsheep for the mittens, Kainuu Grey, as it is a really soft fiber, for the head thing, And then I originally wanted unspun for the shawl, like full on rowing. Do I have an example here? I do. This sort of like actually unspun rowing yarn. I originally thought I would like this for this sort of thing for the shawl, but turned out it wasn't. I couldn't find anything breed specific available at the time. They were all sold out. So I went for the second best, so a really loosely spun, which actually turned out to be a really good thing, because I think the result is very similar, but it was easier to work with having a bit of twist in the yarn. That left Kainuu Grey again for the cardigan, which also was a great thing because I was more familiar with Finnsheep, so I could really get a handle on how the Kainuu Grey felt and behaved and stuff like that. From then on, when I had mapped out all the yarns that I wanted, all the breeds of yarns that I wanted, I reached out to a couple of companies, well, Jalovilla already being one of them, and then I found a smaller, it's a small farm, sheep farm, and they have their own yarns from their own sheep. They had both Kainuu Grey and Finnsheep. And I reached out to them and asked if they would be interested in a project like this, and they were kind enough to sponsor the cardigan yarns for me. And that one's called Urpolan. They also kindly invited me to visit them, but unfortunately they were quite a long ways away from me, so haven't gotten to do that yet, but I will for sure if I ever have anything planned in that direction. So at that point I had the yarns mapped out, decided, and I knew I wanted to do textures and gables. So I began swatching, and I really hoped that I could have found the swatches, but I moved in the spring and I have no clue where I put them. They're probably in a really good safe place somewhere, but I don't know where that place is. But I'm gonna add some photos of the swatches here so that you can get an idea of how much I did and tried. And the main one was that I did a sampler swatch, a longer one with different sorts of gable ideas that I thought might work. And then from those I picked out the best ones and then combined them differently throughout all these designs. So I had a few key components, a few different cables and a texture, and then I used those in a way that none of these designs include all of the components that I used, but they all have some things in common. And from then on it was just a lot of knitting and trying and a bit of drawing and designing and stuff, and I made all the samples and wrote all the patterns and tested them and stuff, and I did all this in like half secret. So I did announce the fact that I was going to do a thesis collection like this in the spring, before, like 6 months before the actual publication, and then I shared some sneak peeks, but I only revealed the full designs like a week or so before it was published. It was quite a fun process, but it was quite a lot. It was quite an undertaking, I did it, and I'm really happy with the result. So with all that background, I think we should actually get into the designs. I think it makes the most sense to do it in the order in which I knit them. I think that's gonna be the easiest for me. So first off is the cardigan. Here's the front. I'm again looking behind you to see in the mirror what you're seeing. And this is the back. And this is all the prominent cables in this design combined into one large panel. And then we also have the cable running down from the shoulder onto the sleeve. The main cable, as I called it. This cardigan is knit in sport weight Kainuu Grey wool. The base is called Kaiho by Urpolan tilapuoti. If I remember correctly, these bases are named after the sheep that they own. And yeah, this is Kainuu Grey yarn, and it has this, it feels woolly, but it's like airy and soft and like scrumptious feeling yarn. And I don't find this itchy at all. Kainuu Grey often works for more sensitive people as well, so even if Finnsheep might be a bit itchy, Kainuu Grey is often suited for them as well. So yeah, I wanted to do something that I hadn't done before, so I did a different construction. It's a drop shoulder, but you are starting with these cabled panels on the shoulders, and then you leave stitches on hold to keep them for the sleeve, and pick up stitches from the cable strap and then work the front and back like you regularly would on a drop shoulder. Cables aren't my favorite thing to work. I really like the look of them, but they are not my favorite thing to knit because I'm a fairly tight knitter and they can sometimes be a bit of a chore. So the fact that I managed to do this much says that this has to be quite an enjoyable pattern to knit. I'm gonna also include photos of these, but I think it's showing pretty well from what I can see. It has this big cable panel on the back, and then also these small cables running down the front edge besides the bottom band. This is hip length, like upper hip length for me. And then one thing I really wanted to add into this collection was these folded cuffs. This gives me like sort of a traditional old-timey feel, and I really like the look of them. And the buttons are self-made from a moose antler. So yeah, that is the first one, the Homeland Cardigan, which started it all. And yeah, these are the cables that are carried through the entire collection in different capacities, you'll see. But this one doesn't have the texture that is represented in a couple of other patterns. So yeah, I didn't want to... One of the main things that I didn't want to do was just pick out a stitch pattern and then slap it onto every item and then call it a day. That wouldn't be a like cohesive, well, it would be cohesive, but it wouldn't be a well-designed collection in my opinion, or for what I was going for. I wanted to have those base elements and then I wanted to mix and match those in interesting ways. I feel like I really got a feel for the Kainuu Grey wool with this yarn. It's really, it feels really warm, and it has this, it's definitely a woolly wool, but it's a soft one, if that makes sense. Like it feels sheepy, but it feels like petting the sheep and not like a prickly sheepy yarn that you might have encountered at some point. So yeah, I'd call this a success. This is a natural black shade, which I was told when I was chatting with the yarn makers that this would be a really black, but to me this is definitely brown. But that's how natural shades go. This one was sponsored, this yarn, by Urpolan for the collection. Next up, I think I made the shawl, which in turn really showcases the texture that I picked out for the collection. Before I show you, this is knit in, again, a yarn by Urpolan. It was called PikkuHali. Yeah. It's a, I would call this worsted weight, maybe Aran worsted weight. In Finland, the rowing that I showed you is called hahtuva, and then what I used for this is called hahtuva lanka, so rowing yarn. So it's really loosely spun rowing. And yeah, this shawl is started here from one sharp corner with two of the cable patterns combined. This doesn't have that big main cable that was on sleeves and back of the cardigan, but this has the smaller cables and these fun ones. I don't know what to call these, but they have, you are slipping or you are passing one stitch over and they are kind of overlapping, so it makes this fun texture. And then when you have the whole width of the cable panel, the rest of the shawl is worked in this knit and purl texture, which I don't know how well you can see, but I'll also again add some photos for you. And this thing is absolutely freaking massive. It's also a bit scrunched up now because I've had these in the yarn cabinet for a while now, but this is huge and warm and sheepy and lovely, and I love this thing. This is so nice. This is Finnsheep, but because of the super light twist, this feels really soft and like sleek and a tad bit lanolin-y as well. It has some lanolin in it still. It definitely has a sheepy smell, but I'm not bothered by it, and it's not prominent enough for like people passing you to smell a sheep. But you can smell it when you're wearing this. I don't know how well you can see. I will add some photos. It is massive and so cozy and nice. And it's surprisingly lightweight with it being this unspun or loosely spun yarn. I don't remember how did I word it in the... Yeah, for the pattern I worded it in a way that the yarn used is loosely spun, producing a similar fabric to unspun, but easier to work with. And that is true. I'm really actually happy that I wasn't able to find the unspun that I was looking for, because these cables would have been probably quite irritating to work with something like that. It might have broken a few times too many, but this, having that loose spun, held up really well. I should have some leftovers of these, but I don't. Again, I don't remember where I put them in the mold. Oh well. But yeah, this is a middle gray color. I did do some color coordinating with the yarns as well, which I'll show you. And yeah, it's worked from this one sharp corner all the way to the other end, which allows you to stop at any point. When the shawl feels big enough, it's big enough. And I did actually have testers knit some different versions with different amounts of yarn for that specific reason, that I wanted to showcase some options. So if you go to the pattern page and look through the photos, there are some smaller ones as well. And yeah, and it has I-cord finishes on every edge. It has quite a bit of a halo. I don't know if you can maybe see, but yeah, that's because of the, well, I think all Finnish wool does have a bit of a halo, but this is because of the very loosely spun yarn. So yeah, that was design number 2. And at that point, all I had left was the 3 small ones. I'm actually gonna have to check which one of the next 2 I made first. So next up was the socks. I have it on a plucker here, so you can maybe see it a bit better. This is from the Homeland sheep sock yarn, and it's called PikkuHali by Jalovilla. And at this point in time, the PikkuHali base is a bit different. Now it has a mix of Homeland sheep and Finnsheep, but the base that I used for the collection is fully Homeland sheep. And the socks have the, where can I show you? They have the texture on the top of the sock running all the way down with those small cables on either side, and the rest is pearl stitches. And these socks are knit inside out, so you don't have to purl this much. And it was a really fun little brain twister to do it that way. And I also, one of my goals with these designs was to do something a bit different with each of them. For the cardigan, it was the construction with the shoulder straps, and for the shawl it was the yarn. And for these ones, I did a fleagle heel, I believe it's this way. No, a variation of strong heel. And they are worked top down towards the toes. So modifying the foot length is really easy, as well as the cuff length. And yeah, you can definitely tell that this yarn is from a different sort of sheep. Like this is a bit prickly, but it is a really tough feeling yarn, which is great for socks and other stuff that would need durability. So I would definitely still use Homeland sheep for some outer garments and like mittens and stuff like that. But it is definitely a lot pricklier and itchier than Finnsheep and Kainuu Grey. So I wouldn't necessarily go for like a headband or a shawl in this. That being said, I do have a skein, an older skein of 100% Homeland sheep in my stash, and that feels even harder than this. So there can be differences, but it is definitely a sheep breed built for those difficult weather conditions and climbs and like stuff like that. I would maybe best compare this to Icelandic wool. So this is kind of the Finnish alternative for Icelandic wool, which I do think is pretty well known around the world. So yarns like Letlopi and stuff. This feels a bit similar. And yeah, this is the third color that's included in the collection. So the cardigan is natural black, and then I have two medium to dark gray, I would call those medium gray accessories, and then there's two green ones, because green and black and gray are my colors. So this collection was a lot of things at once for me. So it was a way of challenging myself, learning something new, but it was also about like really refining and building my brand and brand identity, and I wanted it to be sort of a brand collection as well as a highlight for the amazing Finnish land races. The colors were chosen based on that. And actually a funny side story with that, I had wanted to update my brand and redesign my logo and stuff like that for a while before I started working on this collection. I actually went through or bought a course on branding and developing and refining your brand the year prior, and I had started working on my new logo and I had aspects of it down, but I was missing something. I just couldn't get to what it was, and I actually, when I was working on this collection, like really diving deep into what I want this to be and what I want my brand to be, I managed to put those pieces together and figure out the new logo and all that branding stuff. And this is actually, the antlers are part of that new logo. So yeah, it was really a deep dive into who I am as a designer and what I want to do and how I want to represent myself. But yeah, those are the socks. It sounds maybe a bit intimidating working them inside out, but I promise you it's really not that different. The only thing is that you have to do these cables inside out as well, so purling them, but because it's only one stitch crossing over one stitch all the time, it's really not that bad. Yeah, I've forgotten to say, The cardigan comes in 12 sizes with 3 sleeve length options for each, because that's what I do. That's what I always do to get the best possible sleeve fit. These socks come in 3 sizes. These are fingering weight yarn, and the options are 62, 66 or 70 stitches. I know most people won't swatch for socks, and I know they pick a size based on what stitch count they usually go for. But because these have the cables and patterning here, it's actually, if you usually go for the 64 stitch sock, you would want to pick the 66 stitch one in this pattern. Then next up is possibly my favorite in the collection. This is also a bit of a funny story. I had originally planned on doing the headband, where I was going back and forth between doing a beanie or a headband, and I decided on a headband. And I had originally thought that I would do it how I usually do them, so cast on at the back and then work a tube and then add some buttons and stuff. Then I made the sampler swatch, which had these 2 cables together, like beside each other, and I was like, it would look really, really cool if I could make the cables go that way on the headband. And I did it, and it's so freaking pretty, if I say so myself. And it has buttons because, well, most of my headbands do. So yeah, this one has the what I call main cable repeated with the small cable that was also on every other pattern that I've shown this far. And this is double-sided, and now this one has a stockinette lining, and for mine the stockinette inside is a different color, but it's not like that in the pattern. I did that just in case, because this is also Jalovilla yarn. I had asked for one skein thinking that I would do a regular tube, and when I decided on this construction with this much cables, which eat up more yarn, I wasn't 100% sure if the 50-gram skein would be enough for the headband. So to be safe, I made my sample with a different color of the same yarn on the inside. But it turns out the 50 grams was enough, so you don't have to worry about that. But my sample has a little hidden secret here. This is the first time that I'm revealing the fact that it's different on the inside. This one started here on the inside. You work a bit of stockinette, and then you do some increases for the cable section, work the cables, decrease back down to the stockinette, and work the lining. Kitchener stitch the whole thing together so that you have a long tube, and then you pick up stitches from either end of that tube and you do the shaping with some buttonholes for buttons, so that you can just, is it the right way? Yes. So you can just wrap it around your head like this and fasten it, and you don't have to pull it over your hair, which is what I do because I almost always wear my hair like this, and it's a pain to put on a headband. This one is knit in fingering weight single ply Kainuu Grey wool, which was a special edition of Jalovilla's Vuona yarn. Vuona is a staple of theirs. It has varying amounts of Finnsheep and Kainuu Grey depending on the batch. And last year when I did this, they had a special summer edition which was 100% Kainuu Grey. So that's what this yarn is. But if you were to get Vuona now, it might be at least partly Finnsheep, sort of depends. This is so nice and soft as well. You can really, I don't know if you can see a bit of the sheen that Kainuu Grey tends to have. And also, like, it feels really, Kainuu Grey feels really smooth in my experience. Do I have anything else to say about this? Other than the fact that it's just really, really pretty and delicate. I was knitting this on a trip to Lapland like a summer a year ago. And we got these buttons are made from reindeer antler. They are not made by me, I got them from a little marketplace that they just happened to have while we were there. They are so cool. So yeah, that's 4 out of 5 done. Lastly, I have the mitts. And these ones gave me the most trouble, like deciding on the design. But what I ended up doing was, let me show you. I hope you can see, I'm also adding photos of this, but I ended up splitting the main cable and putting the 2 halves on the outer halves of the mitt, so that when you hold your hands together like this, the cable is full. So again, a little variation on the main cable pattern. And I also decided on the folded top cuffs on these, but you could also, if it's really cold, you can fold them back open and have like really, really long mitts. I've worn these a ton already. They are very well used at this point, but the yarn looks really nice still. It's not really peeling or anything, but I can feel that it's flattened out a bit here on the palm where it's gone the most wear. It's not as airy and plump as it once was. These are made with a yarn base called Lahja by Urpolan tilapuoti. This is also self-bought. It's a DK weight Finnsheep wool. And I would say this is probably the most traditional feeling Finnsheep out of them all. It's not, to me, it's not at all like prickly or itchy, but it definitely feels a bit sheepy in comparison to the loosely spun shawl, for example. But Finnsheep is for me, it's the perfect combination of comfort, but also durability, because these do hold up for quite a while. Like, you can really, I'm trying to show you. I hope you can see, I'm covering my face, so maybe focus is a bit better. There's really not like any peeling there, or maybe just one tiny peel. And when I say I worn these a ton, I have. Like, I wore these all of last winter, driving the car and shopping and everything, so I have definitely done, I was saying that I have definitely like done things wearing these, and they have still held up really well. My camera for some reason cut off and now it's giving me a time limit, so I'm gonna try to wrap this up quite quickly now. But yeah, that was all the Homeland designs. The little sorry, the little backstories and my design logic behind them. We had the mitts, we had the headband, we have the socks, the lovely huge shawl, and the crown jewel of the collection, the cabled cardigan. Just one more look at this back panel here. It seems like the camera's picking it up quite well. So yeah, I hope I've remembered to tell you everything that I wanted about the collection and the Finnish land races and what this collection meant for me. And yeah, the reception was really nice a year ago. I so appreciated all the support for this project because it was quite a big undertaking. Was so worth it, and like I said, it really cleared up my own passions and my brand for myself, as well as for how I wanted to convey it to everyone else. And I feel like it really kind of solidified my stance as a knitwear designer and what I wanted to represent in my work. So yeah, I think that's it. That's the Homeland collection that's celebrating its first birthday. And I will figure out a lovely little anniversary discount, and I'll pop that in the description below and maybe on the screen here as well, because I haven't decided that at this point when I'm filming. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little ramble about the Homeland collection and how it came to be and why it came to be, and hope you learned something new about Finnsheep today. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'll be back with a regular podcast here soon. I have some stuff to show you, but first, let's celebrate Homeland. Happy knitting, and I'll see you here soon. Bye bye!